After playing Path of Exile 2 for the last 3 months, there's one conclusion that I need to share with you guys. Even in its current early access state, I believe that Path of Exile 2 is the greatest ARPG right now, and it has the potential to be the greatest ARPG of all time. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is quite a large claim, but don't worry. Throughout this video, I'll be supporting this claim with a lot of different points to help you see why I feel this way. So buckle up, because today we're taking a deep dive into why I think Path of Exile 2 is the greatest ARPG that you can play right now. Before we get into Path of Exile 2, I want to give you guys a short backstory on my own experiences with ARPGs.
Rock this joint!
And we say
I was lucky enough to be born in the early 90s, and growing up, we always had a home computer. Picture a young Blaze rushing home from school to chat with his friends on MSN Messenger while playing Pokemon on his Game Boy Advance. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, my stepdad brought home a box of used computer games that he bought off of a friend. This box was filled with some fantastic titles, and I have no idea why his friend was getting rid of all these games. But one game in this box in particular would leave an impression on me that would last a lifetime. This game was none other than Diablo 2, and I was immediately hooked on it. I spent the next few years of my life playing through this game many times by myself and playing online with friends as well. I was completely captivated by its powerful story, incredible soundtrack, deep character customization, and endless replayability. Diablo 2 was the first time that I felt like I truly experienced greatness in video games, and ever since then, I've been chasing this feeling. Diablo 2 has become my baseline for what I look for in an excellent ARPG experience, and it's important to keep this in mind because I'll be making a lot of comparisons between Diablo 2 and Path of Exile 2 throughout this video. Playing D2 as a kid turned me into a lifelong ARPG fan, and since then, I've tried out numerous different titles, all while chasing the feeling that I experienced all those years ago. But nothing ever quite hit the same. The next few entries in the Diablo series missed the mark, so I branched out and tried other games like Torchlight, Grim Dawn, Last Epoch, and Path of Exile as well. Fast forward to 23 years later, and I honestly thought that no other ARPG would be able to reach the same level of greatness as Diablo 2. There was one game that I did have my eye on though. Path of Exile 2 caught my attention after it was announced as a separate title from Grinding Gear Games at their ExileCon in 2023. I was immediately drawn to its dark yet vibrant aesthetic, diverse array of classes, and really cool boss designs. As the hype grew bigger and bigger, December 6, 2024 finally rolled around, and I was able to get my hands on this new exciting ARPG.
There can be no salvation without sacrifice.
Path of Exile 2's early access took the world by storm, as Grinding Gear Games saw more than 500,000 players log in to explore the world of Rayclast at launch on Steam alone. This early access launch introduced 3 of the 6 campaign acts, half the classes and weapons, and only a third of all ascendancy choices. Commercially, this game became the company's biggest success, surpassing even the most successful of Path of Exile 1 leagues. Despite a few hiccups that are bound to happen during the launch of any hyped game, I was able to log in the next day and spend an unhealthy amount of time playing this game. From the moment I logged in, I was in constant awe of the various different elements and systems of the game coming together, which created an unforgettable experience. As I played through the campaign, I was in a constant state of holy crap moments as the game showcased GGG's vision, which I believe is pushing the ARPG genre to new heights. From the diverse environments, to an incredible variety of monsters, to the sheer amount of quality boss fights, it was clear that this game was going to be something special. The feeling that I felt during my first time playing Diablo 2 finally reared its old head, and I welcomed it back with open arms. Since then, I've sunk an astonishing 700 hours into this game.
I'm a nerd. So am I!
And this isn't a regular occurrence for me. Usually, I bounce around, playing a game for a while until I get burnt out of it, and then move to something else. But even though I have this amount of time already invested, I find myself not wanting to play anything else. This is the feeling that's inspired me to make this video. Path of Exile 2 does a lot of things right, so I'm going to talk about those things now. The thing I probably enjoy the most about this game are the various deliberate game design decisions which ultimately make the game fit within GGG's vision. While these game design decisions may be controversial to some players, the fact that there is controversy means that they are doing something different from other companies. Instead of looking at the modern ARPGs of today, playing it safe and following the same formula, they've decided to make a game that they want to make. I know. Who knew that developers making the games that they want to make would be a rarity in 2025? These game design decisions include things like having classes be one specific gender with no customization, slower combat, punishing death penalties, or having ascendancy choices be permanent. The list goes on. There is a plethora of design decisions at work here that I think make this game unique and stand out in the ARPG space, which I think is very much aligned with some of the decisions that went into making Diablo 2. The saying goes, if you're making a game for everyone, you're making a game for no one. Path of Exile 2 is aware of their target audience, which leans towards the more hardcore ARPG players, and they have really designed their game with that in mind. They are also improving and innovating on what they have done with Path of Exile 1, just like how Blizzard North approached the development from Diablo 1 to Diablo 2. Alright, now let's talk about gameplay. And just a warning, we're gonna be here a while. The gameplay of Path of Exile 2 feels incredibly satisfying and engaging, all while building a well-paced sense of progression for your character. It features new movement controls with the addition of WASD and a dodge roll, which for me personally, might have just ruined any other click-to-move ARPG. The addition of WASD allows for moving while shooting and casting spells as well, which adds a completely new level of fluidity that I haven't seen before. Now, I am one of those people that struggled getting into Path of Exile 1 due to its high level of complexity early on, even though I tried the game a bunch of times. Path of Exile 2 excels at creating a solid new player experience that, in my opinion, is just much easier to understand and engage with than its former title. This is due partially to the fact that this game is very much bare bones, as it's still in early access and hasn't had a decade of content and development that Path of Exile 1 has. I felt as though I was getting in on the ground floor with Path of Exile 2, learning the basics while allowing myself to slowly digest more complexity and content over time. Path of Exile 2 offers a revised skill gem system that is quite streamlined and easy to grasp. This is reinforced by offering video examples for every spell and ability, along with highlightable keywords, which allows the player to learn more. These features kept me in the game, playing the game, while learning the game, instead of using external resources to help me understand what the hell I was doing, which is a really good thing. The synergies between spells is also something I haven't seen too much in any ARPG, and it really stood out to me. Casting Spark or Lightning Arrow through a firewall ignited the projectile, or allowing other players to interact with a Tempest spell really showcased the thought that GGG has put into the skill system and how players can synergize in a multiplayer setting. The game sounds incredible, by the way. The sound design and music is S tier. When I'm shattering large groups of frozen monsters into ice chunks, it's just music to my ears. Visually, the game's graphics is top of the charts as well. The visual effects on spells, lighting, equipment, and environments are all amazing, and I found myself just admiring the sheer amount of detail put into the various environments throughout the campaign. Let's just say, when you get to the Black Chambers, keep your eyes out because there's some crazy shit in there. Path of Exile 2's campaign is actually quite difficult for modern ARPG standards. White monsters have abilities that can wreck you if you're not careful, and the bosses have various mechanics that require patience and timing in order to defeat. I'm a big fan of this level of difficulty, and I believe that GGG has achieved a good balance of challenge and fairness, which results in a really great feeling when you overcome difficult obstacles. It's been referenced many times that GGG has taken inspiration from Software and the Dark Souls franchise, which I think is an absolutely good thing. The level of replayability is also really high, given that only half the game's content is even out right now. After playing the game for 700 hours, I haven't even tried all of the ascendancies, and I have virtually no experience playing the Sorceress class. It's honestly a little hard to imagine that this game is going to have twice as much content as it does currently at a minimum, with the level of polish and quality that it has, and be free to play. It's just absolutely incredible player value, which is something that's totally lost in an era of battle passes, monthly subscriptions, and premium accounts with pay-to-win mechanics. Currently, you do have to pay to play the early access version of the game. However, GGG has still managed to provide value to you by giving you the equivalent of your purchase in in-game currency that you can spend in the microtransaction shop. Path of Exile 2's microtransaction shop doesn't offer anything beyond stash tabs for extra storage space or cosmetic items for your character, but even having the option to purchase something from playing early access was an excellent choice. They also did the unfathomable and will have all of your previously purchased stash tabs and cosmetics transfer over from PoE 1 to PoE 2, which is an absolutely legendary move that many companies would never make. However, the cosmetics are still very much in the works. Being available on console as well has really opened up the game to be experienced by a whole new audience. I myself haven't experienced this yet, but there are a surprisingly high amount of players that have enjoyed the game only on console. I also need to talk about all the subtle nods to Diablo 2, which I'm an absolutely huge fan of.
You're a fucking nerd.
From the similar act locations, to saving a dude who can later identify items for you, to the 2 mausoleums in the Cemetery of Eternals, matching the mausoleums in the burial grounds of Diablo 2. These little nods to a game that is widely considered the best ARPG ever made really showcases the respect that GGG has for the genre and highlights where they found some of their key sources of inspiration from. All of these points come together to create a game that's just straight up fun to play, easy to learn, and puts the player experience first above all else. Now, despite all of these positives, the game isn't perfect. As a passionate ARPG player for the last 2 decades, I feel like when it comes to the genre, I've realized I might just be damaged goods. What I mean by this is that I've had my trust broken by a certain developer a few times, Blizzard, because of their failure to bring anything groundbreaking to the table since Diablo 2. This combined with the scarcity in good ARPG titles, of course there are exceptions like Last Epoch and Grim Dawn, have made me have extremely high standards. Part of these high standards are expecting new titles to be jam-packed with as much content as games that have been fully released with years of updates and content patches. Sometimes I have to remind myself to manage my expectations when it comes to new games. This is because it's just not possible for a new game to launch, especially in early access, jam-packed full of content and features. This is especially the case when it comes to Path of Exile 2. As I mentioned previously, the game is bare bones and is essentially the foundation upon which GGG can build the next best ARPG. This leaves the game with a few things to be desired. The endgame experience certainly did not receive the same level of polish as the campaign, and has a lot of room for improvement. The crafting system in its current state is pretty much just a slot machine with extra steps. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love RNG, but I also would love a little bit more determinism as well. I just hope that they don't overdo it, because I still think that killing monsters to find items should be a part of the core game experience. Balance right now is certainly another issue, as there are some clearly overpowered builds and weapon skills that are just straight up better upon reaching the endgame. The trade economy is another issue for players. Surging prices of divine orbs have created an inflated market, and the general rough trading experience can definitely leave a bad taste in your mouth. Essentially, the biggest issue for me and for a lot of players is that we just want more stuff, which will simply be solved over time. Over time, we will see the addition of more deterministic crafting via the crafting bench, along with more endgame polish and a surplus of skill and support gems for new weapons. I don't want to be another guy using early access as an excuse for every issue in the game, but I do think that launching the game in early access was the correct choice. Early access is allowing the developers to harness valuable player feedback and testing that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Fundamentally, the game in its current state is still very much incomplete, and that's okay. Grinding Gear Games is cooking up a delicious feast when it comes to this game, and I'm fine with snacking on the appetizers they've put out until dinner's ready. Path of Exile 2's early access launch has already found a special place in my heart, as it's reinvigorated my passion for ARPGs that I haven't felt since playing Diablo 2. The gameplay foundation right now is still very strong, and I honestly think that this game will go down as the best ARPG of all time once the game finally releases. That is unless GGG makes some severely bad decisions down the road. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Path of Exile 2's early access? Do you think that it's the best ARPG on the market right now? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching. This is my first time taking a stab at any long-form content, and I've had an absolute blast making it. Alright guys, so if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you could like it and subscribe for more PoE 2 content. I have a bunch more PoE 2 videos coming down the pipeline, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.